Hello everyone and welcome to another Multipass workflow tutorial with me, Eldrin from Lobster Lumiere. Today we're taking another look at the FaceShift Cinema 4D workflow, and this time we're going to be doing everything in Cinema 4D directly from FaceShift. We're not going to have to use Soft Image, we're not going to have to use Face Robot, we're not going to have to use any tricks of any sort to get this done. This allows for a much faster workflow. We can quickly go in here and do all our facial animation and preparation here in Cinema 4D. And then we can quickly get into Motion Builder and animate our characters and combine the facial and body animations directly between those two programs without requiring anything else. Alright, and this is all thanks to the new FaceShift C4D plugin that was designed by a German designer called 80%. I might have mispronounced that, but that looks like about right. And he's created this FaceShift, the C4D plugin that basically takes a FaceShift recording and it will import it in and it will automatically attach it to Cinema 4D blend shapes. So it's very, very, very powerful, and it allows you to do a lot of tweaking and addition and stuff like that. It allows you to really get quickly into animating your characters. So let's just get to it. What we're going to do is, we've already installed it. If you download it from his site and just install into the plugins folder, it pops up here as a plugin. And if you click on it, it's got a pretty basic interface here. So you've got shapes, you've got head translation, head rotation, the IR and the IL. And it also has the ability to stream directly from FaceShift. So technically you can do real-time animation directly here in Cinema 4D, right directly from FaceShift, without even needing to load in a recording. My usual workflow, however, I go into FaceShift. So this is FaceShift 1.2 that I'm using. I wouldn't say it's the latest and greatest. I think they've came out with FaceShift 2.1 or something like that. But my Connect is on, and right now I'm recording at night, so it's a little dark. FaceShift does its best animation or re-representation of your face when it has a good depth field to you. That is, you know, your if we go into tracking here real quick, basically we've got this bar up here that lets us know that we're in the sweet spot for FaceShift. I'm using the FaceShift, or I'm using the sensor, the Connect sensor open knee drivers versus the Microsoft drivers. I found with the Connect sensor that the Microsoft Connect drivers just do not work very well with the Xbox Connect sensor, mainly because the Connect sensor doesn't have a near mode, so to speak, like the Windows sensor does. There's a near mode built into that. So what happens is, if you use FaceShift with the Connect drivers, you're not going to be able to actually get into this sweet spot, and you're not going to be able to it's not going to be able to sense your face. So it's just not going to work very well. But that means that you can't use Braco Pro Face. So you have to pick one or the other, because Braco Pro Face requires the Connect drivers to work. So yeah, with all that disclaimer out the way, basically FaceShift senses the texture of your face. It uses the color information, and then it also uses the depth information from the infrared part of the sensor. It uses them both together to kind of sort of figure out what's going on with your face. So I have a LED light here on my desk. I'm a videographer, freelancer as well, so I also do film. And so I have an LED light that's mounted onto my my Lumix Panasonic camera, DSLR camera. But you could use pretty much any light you want to. As you can see, the Connect sensor is not having any more trouble finding my face. And if I move back just a little bit, I can get perfectly into the sweet spot. And now it's reading my lips and it's sensing what I'm saying. It's having trouble with my eyes, and that's because I have glasses on, so the light is reflecting, and a lot of stuff is reflecting in those. I basically remove the glasses when I get ready to record, but only right when I get ready to record. I just cannot see the monitor without them. So yeah, there's that. If you wanted to actually look into purchasing the this LED light, it's a very, very powerful, very, very bright light. If you're into videography like myself, and you do 3D tracking and stuff like that, and After Effects and things like that, you need to record something at night, or you just need to get more soft light, I found that this light is pretty good. And I've been using it for a few years now. It's here on Amazon, pretty cheap. It's not that expensive, and it's extremely bright. Like it's almost blinding me right now. So we're going to switch back to phase shift here. We'll put Cinema 4D in the background there. And alright, so if we go to our network here, we can turn on network streaming, and we could actually see our data stream directly into Cinema 4D if we wanted to, and do everything in real time. We can also hit the record button here, and we could actually just record the performance and go ahead and save the performance out. Here in training, and I've went over phase shift a little bit before, so it's probably in one of my older tutorials. I think the soft image tutorial is the one that goes over this information. But I'm going to go ahead and load in a previous profile that I've created that has a better track of my face. The facial, the profile here that I'm using, I actually don't think I've gotten the best performance out of my face. My face, as you can see, doesn't really look like it's getting a completely good read on my lips and my different cheek expressions. It's a little bit. Just try to smile here and do different things. So it's got a good idea of what the funnel is, the kiss blend shape and different things like that. But I still feel like it doesn't read as well, and that's probably because I have this big, huge man afro on the bottom of my face. So I mean, if you're not concerned about keeping something like that up, I don't know. I guess I would recommend like shaving your face, or at least keeping the hair down to a very minimum. I think it helps phase shift actually recognize your face a little bit better. But I'm not gonna cut mine anytime soon. All right. But yeah, with this set, we can go ahead and just record a quick performance. So we can go ahead and look down at our camera and kind of look right at the sensor. And once we do that, we can go ahead and calibrate the neutral pose, so that now it has an idea of where our head is supposed to be neutrally. And then we can hit the record button as soon as I take my glasses off. So now, you know, I kind of sort of memorized the screen a little bit before I actually hit the record button, so that I can tell what I'm hitting, because I literally almost can't see the record button now. And this is a phase shift test. This is a phase shift test for Cinema 4D to phase shift, or phase shift to Cinema 4D. Thank you. And there we go. We've got a recording. So what we're going to do is we're going to, saying it couldn't keep up with the frame rate, likely because my computer's either doing a lot of stuff right now, or the USB channel that it's on just wasn't feeding the data as fast as it could. So we're going to let it actually reprocess the clip and get a good process on it that's going to just refine our animation and make it just look a little bit better when it gets into Cinema 4D. Also, my eye, I was looking up. Usually when I record these, I also look at the camera, so it looks like I'm actually staring down at the camera. But now we can actually go through and we can run through the animation. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my LED light that's blinding me. And so we've basically got our animation here. Now we can go and refine and retrack, and all this stuff, all these tutorials are on the Phaseshift website and different places like that. So I would highly recommend you go through the basic Phaseshift tutorials. They are very, very, very thorough. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to save the recording out. This will allow us to come back to this and refine it some more if we need to. We're going to go ahead and save it to the H drive, and we're going to save it under local render jobs, and we're going to save it under Testa 2, and we're going to create a new folder for this, and we're going to call it Phaseshift. So I like to save all my Phaseshift stuff in a Phaseshift folder. By now you guys know how much of a stickler I am for organization. It really helps later in the process to help you find things really, really fast. And we'll just call this take 1 or something along those lines. And that's just going to save our Phaseshift performance. We can load that back up, and we can reuse this and go through everything in Phaseshift and clean everything up, and use all Phaseshift's powerful cleanup tools to kind of sort of clean this up. Next, we're going to export out the sequence, and we're going to export it out as a Phaseshift ASCII file. So we're going to go ahead and save it as ASCII text, which means just a plain text. You could read it inside of Notepad. You could probably even create your own plugin to actually, manipulate the data if you're that kind of person. If you're a programmer type, and we can call this also take 1. We can go ahead and save it, and then I'm going to go ahead and resample it down to 24 frames per second, because that's the frame rate I typically work on my animations in nowadays. We're going to save the units as centimeters, because that's Cinema 4D's default unit of measurement. We'll keep the rotation and translation relative to neutral, and we'll export out the audio file. This will allow us to use the audio that we recorded in Phaseshift later down the line in the process to actually have perfect lip sync with the animation that we recorded, which is great. So you get lip sync, and you get clean facial animation all for free with this program. So we can click OK, and that's going to go ahead and save everything out. Okay, and then we're done with Phaseshift. Alrighty guys, here we are back in Cinema 4D, and what we're going to do is we're going to use the Phaseshift to C4D plugin to go ahead and import in our facial animation. Now before we use this plugin, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to set up our poses so that they match the naming conventions that Phaseshift uses to drive our Xpresso. So if we go ahead and create a user data object here in our Phaseshift to C4D plugin, we'll notice that we get one here in the objects browser. So here we have all our morphs that Phaseshift is expecting. These will automatically get synchronized or linked via Xpresso if we click on this shapes node here. And if we select our pose morph expression and then click on the shapes, it will automatically link those up. So all we need to do really is figure out what DAZ morphs correspond to these Phaseshift morphs, rename them, and then when we click shapes, if they're renamed here, everything will automatically link up and we'll automatically have facial animation. Alright, so to that end, I've actually wrote down in a notepad file here some of the morphs that match certain Phaseshift morphs. We don't have to actually do all of them, although you'll get better facial animation if you do so. But these are the ones, after some quick work, that I've found have worked in my animations, and these kind of match the Phaseshift ones. So if we just go ahead and copy this one here, and then we come over to C4D, and we hit a search button here, we can search the object browser with that button, and we go ahead and paste in this morph. You'll see that it'll pop up here and it'll isolate, and then all we've got to do is go into Notepad and just copy the corresponding phase shift morph. So this morph matches the mouth smile. So if we do that, then we renamed it. Then we can change this L to an R, and it'll automatically find the right side morph. And then we can change this L to an R here, and we're basically done. So we can go through and pretty much go through all of these and find them and replace them, and then we'll have all our morphs renamed. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that real quick. Alrighty, so I renamed all the morphs, and what we want to do now is we want to go ahead and select all of the morphs we renamed, just like so. So we're just going to go through and we're going to just make sure we carefully go and find all the renamed morphs. We can tell that they're renamed because they don't have the head control odd naming convention that Daz brings in. So we can go ahead and continue to do so. And here we are. And let's just go through here one more time, make sure we got them all. And it looks like for the most part we did. So excellent. Now we can go up to our pose morph tag, and what we want to do is we want to actually delete all the old morphs out of here. So if we hit delete after hitting Control A, we'll delete all our old poses. So now the pose morph tag is clear, and then all we gotta do is just drag in our new morphs. And we can create relative morphs targets. Create absolute targets, but I like to click no and create relative targets. And what the relative targets will do is they'll actually store the pose morphs directly in the model itself. That means you could actually delete this whole entire nest of poses, and you won't lose any of the pose morphs. The pose morph, all the pose morph vertex information will actually be stored directly in the pose morph tag. Alright, and so with these morphs in here now, we can go through and we can see that these morphs are working. We can animate each one of these, and we can kind of sort of test here in edit mode in our pose morph tag that these different morphs are actually animating out. Sometimes Cinema 4D sticks when it's going through the pose morphs. Pose morph tag is a little on the intensive side, it seems. You know, as Cinema 4D kind of sort of loads up the morphs first, and then it kind of sort of has to play with them. But now that we have our morphs named, we can go ahead and save, and we can go ahead and reopen up our phase shift dialog here, phase shift to C4D plugin dialog. Alright, and we're going to go ahead and minimize that down. And so now with the pose morph selected, we can go ahead and actually attach shapes. But before we do so, let's go ahead and create a user data object that'll actually store our information from phase shift. So now we have a user data object created. It seems like I've created one in the past, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Actually, for that matter, I'll go ahead and delete this one too, and I'll create a new one just to make sure that we're fresh. Alright, and so now we have our morphs, and we have our morphs created here. So we can go ahead and select our pose morph tag and do shapes, and basically these shapes will be linked to the phase shift data information. So if we go ahead and double click on our Xpresso node, it's going to bring up our Xpresso editor, and we can go ahead and see that indeed all of our morphs are linked to their corresponding phase shift data sets. We're obviously missing quite a few, These are morphs that I couldn't find a corresponding DAZ morph to work with. So, as I said before, we don't really need all the morphs. These ones here will do. We'll be able to see some pretty decent facial animation, but if you want nuanced animation, then what you're going to want to do is go in and actually sculpt some of your own morphs and use those in your pose morph tag as well. Just make sure that they are named corresponding to FaceShift's naming convention so that they're automatically found by this Shapes button. Alright, so with that done, what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and load in our recording from FaceShift. So it's this text file here. It's a ASCII format recording. And then we're going to go ahead and add the recording to our project. Now when we do that, what happens down here in the timeline is now that data has been added to the timeline. And it's been added onto the FaceShift user data object node. So if we come in now and we can go ahead and move our animation over here to 0. So come over and we can go ahead and move our timeline to 0, and then we can go ahead and zoom in a little bit and go ahead and move our timeline to 0 here. Let's also go into our project settings and just make sure our project is set up right. We exported out of Cinema 4D, or we exported out of FaceShift rather, at 24 frames per second. We just want to make sure our project is also 24 frames per second. And I've set up this project at 24 frames per second, so it's good. In our render settings also, if we're going to render this out, we want to make sure that our render settings project frame rate is also 24 frames per second. That way the renderer just gives us the correct frames to and from, and we just have no issues with the overall rendering. Alright. So with all that set up, you can see that her face is jumped a little bit. Now it's actually receiving data directly from the expressions, or from the keyframed user data that's on the FaceShift data object. And all that was automatically set up with one button, the Shapes button, to the user data object, to our pose morph tag. So if we go through and we actually slide, you can actually see that she is talking and she's inheriting what I said in the recording. So that's great. And that's pretty much it. There are a few other things we can do. So we can come in and we can go to our view here, and we can actually show all of the animation nodes. So if we turn off Show Animated, what this will do is it'll actually show an animation track for every single object that we have in our scene. This way we can see unanimated objects, and we can manipulate them. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually create a null, and we're going to call it sound. Okay. So now we have a new null called sound that has no animation on it. What we can do is right click on it and actually create a special track and create a sound track. So now this null has a sound file attached to it. And with this sound selected, we can come over here now and we can actually load up a wave file to use as our sound wave. So if we load up our Take One wave file and then we expand this out, we can see the waveform for our audio. And in fact, we can also scrub, and Cinema 4D will actually play the audio while we're scrubbing through our FaceShift data. So now we can actually hear what we're saying, and we can see the face react. So that's pretty impressive. Let's go ahead and save. Alrighty guys, so what else can we do? Well, we bring back over the plugin here. with our phase shift data object still hooked in, we can actually mess with some of these other buttons. So we can hook up the head rotations so that the movements that we made in phase shift will be applied to our character. So that's pretty easy. All we need to do is just find the bone that we want to hook those rotations up to. In this particular case, we're going to use the neck, and then we're going to go ahead and just click on the head rotations button, and you'll notice that the neck snapped to those rotations, and it's actually picking up that rotational data from the phase shift. So now we can drive, our head based on the movements that we were making in phase shift, which is really great. We can also drive our eyes the same exact way. So we can find the right eye, which should be attached to the head, and we can go ahead and hit the right eye button, and then we can go ahead and find left eye and hit the left eye button, and now the eyes will also be driven by that same data. So if we go ahead and scrub through now, we'd see that her eyes are moving. And now we've got a very, very, very good animation here. So she's got some really nice articulation, she's got some eye movement, the brows are moving. This is all really good, and this is with just using only a few of the morphs available to us. We're not even using all of the morphs that are available to us here, because most of those didn't come out of DAZ. Now we could create those, and of course we get a significantly better animation. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. The bone animations, of course, can be baked. The pose morph animations are a little bit more difficult. You could bake these into PLA, but I found in recent exports that they've increased the file size tremendously of the file. So the best way I find to work with this would be just to keep the phase shift performance and just go ahead and use the Espresso. The phase shift performance itself is kind of sort of a clip archive in and of itself, so it pretty much can be used with any character. So you don't really need to use the motion clip system or anything like that to kind of sort of create archives in this particular case. I'm going to keep looking into it though, and I'll probably release a new tutorial if I figure out a better way to manage that. But all in all, this was really fun. So you guys go out having fun and create some amazing phase shift animations. This has been Elderman with Launch Samir, and it's been a pleasure, guys, and take care. Hope to see you guys with another tutorial soon.